Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Bald Explorer Live. It's, what is it today? The 28th of July, 2020. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon as I record this. Might be a different time where you are, of course. And I got myself a little mug of tea, a mug with my face on it. You know, you just have to, don't you? Well, you don't have to, clearly. This is an old mug, actually. Vobes TV. Back in the day when, well, just back in the day, really. We are reading H.V. Morton's In Search of England. But before we get to that, in the post, a couple of items came that I wasn't expecting. I do order books from time to time. They go on a slush pile of stuff to read. And I try and sift them into ones I'm interested to read when I've got a moment, ones I'm interested to read now, ones, well, you know, maybe I ought to have a copy of this. And if you've been in my house, as the lovely Julia will know, they're sort of everywhere, and you wouldn't be able to differentiate which pile was which, of course. So the first thing that came was this. Is a red book. No, it's not This Is Your Life. This is Your Life. Richard Vobes. This is Your Life. That was a very bad impression. This is H.V. Morton's Britain. Somebody has sent this to me, but there was no note or even any packaging detail, so I have no idea who sent this. This is rather marvellous. This was published in 1969. But it's got a list of his other books. Oh, here we go. Lots of other books here. In Search of England, The Call of England, In Search of Scotland, In Search of Ireland, In Search of Wales, in Scotland again, The Ghosts of London, H.V. Morton's London. So yes, lots of interesting stuff, and fascinating to read it, actually. Sorry, I got slightly lost. So a nice book. So I don't know who's sent this to me, but if you could own up, that would be lovely, because then I can thank you. But that's lovely. You may or may not know it's my birthday on Thursday, and this has come, which I can tell you is a book, but I don't know what, and I don't want to open it yet. There's a card, so I've got it. Whoever sent it, I've got it, along with what we reckon is a farmyard in that one. So Thursday I'll have to open the presents, so it'll be interesting to know. But there we go. The allotments of Sean. Didn't realise it was a big book, thought it was a little book. Did you send that? Is this what you... Oh, yes, I think you did say you'd send you something. Is this from Sean? This is lovely. Thank you very much. This is all about Britain. There's a lovely picture there. Where is that? Oh, Harlech Castle in Marianthshire. Have a look at that. Lots of nice pictures. Well, I may have to... Oh, that was you. Thank you so much. That's so kind. How lovely is that? Well, we'll get on to that. To me, Hampton Court is the place above all others where it is easy to imagine Henry VIII and his great daughter living their everyday life, sitting in front of the fire in wintertime, playing tennis, gardening, riding out to the hunt to hunt the stag, dancing, entertaining friends, chasing Pac-Man, using the iPad, and flying a drone. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But we're on the little book now. Thank you very much, Sean. Really appreciate that. I shall very much look forward to that. And there's a list there of some of his other books, which I must try and get the set, really. Be nice to have the set, don't you know? Anyway, enough of this nonsense. We are very close to the end of this. We're on chapter 12, ladies and gentlemen. So, chapter 12, in which I sit beside the Avon at Stratford, meet a new gypsy, go to Coventry, Kenilworth, Warwick, and Come at last to the end of my journey. Oh, blimey. The end of my journey. Come at last. At last. I wonder when he wrote this, I guess this is the first one, that he knew that there was going to be a whole load of them. That's quite interesting. Bloody glasses on the end of my nose. These Warwickshire lanes, deep and banked, these mighty trees. Sorry, I didn't say hello to everybody, by the way. I beg your pardon. Hello to Steve. Hello to Adrian. Hello to Audrey. To Julia. To Graham. To Lath Shy. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. To Morton and to Sean. Hello to all of you. And anybody else who happens to have come along. I don't know why this has suddenly opened up stream settings here. What's that gone and done? Done something. Anyway, I'm not going to touch it. Don't know how you get out of that. Right. So now I've said hello, we can get on with it. These Warwickshire lanes, deep and banked, these mighty trees, these small arched bridges over small streams. How well I knew them when I was a boy. There were little villages in which men still spoke Elizabethan English, such as Welford-on-Avon, where there was a maypole, where they grew the most delicious raspberries and took the sweetest honey from straw skeps. Here it was years ago that I saw a man in a smock. There was Bidford, drunken Bidford, where an old woman with a face like a withered apple under a mauve sunbonnet used to point out the crab tree beneath whose shade Shakespeare, so the legend went, slept off a carouse at the Falcon Inn. And I knew the 8 villages of the rhyme, written of course by Shakespeare: Piping Pebworth, Dancing Marston, Haunted Hilborough, Hungry Grafton, Dodging Exhall, Papsit Wixford, Beggarly Broom, and Drunken Bidford. I do not dare to revisit them in any time. I would not dare to revisit them in the time at my command. Some day I will spend a month there, but it must be in June, when the raspberry canes are heavy in Welford. It is an amusing error to revisit a place which thrilled us when we were young. I seem to remember Stratford-on-Avon as a quiet little haven where it was always May, with nightingales shaking silver in the dark trees at night, and the Avon mooning under Hugh of Clopton's grand old bridge. And I was terribly young. I used to rise with the sun and walk over dripping meadows with the wrong way round shadows, the king's cups shaking dew over my boots, and I would read Shakespeare aloud to the astonishment of the cows, pausing transfixed in wonder on an empty stomach, by such lines as, well, never mind. Only youth knows. Only youth can achieve that passionate intensity. And one night I nearly killed Mary Coriel, a moonstruck night just like that which Dido knew upon the wild sea banks so marvellously that I, looking only at the moon, drove a punt with great force into the author's famous gondola. There was Mr. Frank Benson, as he was in those days, the local deity, often in swift and godlike transit on the decrepit bicycle, the high priest of the Stratford festival. I remember him waving his arms at me in the storeroom hung with hams, not his arms, the storeroom, I think, which he used as an office, and telling me as I sat worshipping him from a sugar crate that only through Stratford, the common meeting place of the English-speaking world, could we heal the pains of industrialism and make England happy again. We were to make the whole world happy, apparently, by teaching it to Morris dance and sing folk songs and go to the Memorial Theatre. With that splendid faith of youth, we pilgrims believed that England could be made merry again by by hand-looms and young women in liberty gowns who played the harpsichord. Then I seem to remember shortly after the war was declared. Anyway, however, I drove between the well-loved Warwick hedges through the perfect death rattle of motor traffic into Stratford. My quiet old Stratford was suffering from a rash of trippers. Charabancs from everywhere were piled up in the square. Half the motor cars of the Midlands were either coming or going, and the hotel was full of long-legged girls from America and sallow fathers and spectacled mothers. They gave me a bedroom called Love's Labour's Lost. It looked over the street, and I sat watching more Americans arrive and thinking how amused Shakespeare must have been. Stratford's fame rests on Shakespeare. Much of its prosperity rests on the fact that it is a social disgrace in America not to have rushed through Stratford. This town is very core to the heart of Americans' England. The rich American in his touring car and the poor American doing England on a book of coupons are alike in this. Neither dare to show his face at home unless he can honestly say that he has seen Shakespeare's hometown. Stratford-on-Avon is the only town in England which can be compared with the ancient pilgrim towns. It is, in its way, a kind of lay Glastonbury. I suppose the old religious shrines also received thousands of sheep-like pilgrims who had no idea why they were pilgrims beyond the fact that it was the right thing to do. How I detest the word pilgrim in its modern sense. Also the word shrine. Whenever I hear them, I seem to hear also someone saying, "Bring a couple of martinis. Quick now, and some ice water." I went into Harvard House, which belongs to the American University and is used as a restroom. It has Yale blue curtains. In this house lived Catherine Rogers, who married Robert Harvard and became the mother of the founder of the Harvard University. I went to New Place, which, thanks to the energy of Mr. Wellstood, the curator of Shakespeare's birthplace, is becoming an excellent museum. I went, of course, to the birthplace where, because Stratford seems to arouse all the instincts of the souvenir hunter, they keep a guardian in every room. I must have exhausted my Shakespeare worship years ago, for I found myself more interested in the moon-like faces of the pilgrims bent above the glass cases than in the fact that here, they say, was born the greatest poetic genius of the English race. "Say, guide," said a pilgrim, "is it known how much Shakespeare made out of his plays?" Overlooking the garden of Shakespeare's birthplace is, if association and surroundings mean anything to a writer, the most perfect workroom in the world. From his desk in the window, Mr. Wellstood, the curator, overlooks the garden in which Shakespeare was hushed to sleep. Blue bubbles tried to catch the clouds and suffered, no doubt, from those alarming facial contortions common to all infants. Another inspiration is that from May till September, every American girl in England passes in review before it. Mr. Wellstood told me that he has discovered Roman Stratford beneath the golf links. I found two things unchanged in Stratford. One was the mossy seat on the high wall of Holy Trinity Churchyard overlooking the Avon. This is, to my mind, one of the supremely English views. It seems, as you sit there with the willows dipping to the river, beyond, on the opposite bank, great feckled meadows, and in the air the sound of water rushing past the old mill, that all the beauty and the peace of the Warwickshire countryside have been packed into one riverscape. Between the tombstones grow vast yew trees. It is so right that Shakespeare's bones should lie in this quiet church. Now and again, from the thin spire, a bell tells the time lazily. The tall avenue of lime trees move in the wind. And the woods by the river, they too are unchanged. The tourist never goes to them. The tripper knows them not. Here, in the spring, you can hear the nightingale all night long. Here, the wild roses light up the hedges, and the tiny blossom of the blackthorn lies over the grass like snow. Just now, the brake is feeling the fingers of autumn among the leaves. And this is the place where you will meet Shakespeare, if you want to meet him, in this wood, which I swear is the magic wood near Athens. It was evening when I went there on a real pilgrimage, and it seemed to me that Oberon and Titania had just hidden behind the great trees, that mustard sea and pea blossom had withdrawn to their acorn cups at the sound of footsteps. In the middle of the wood that clings to the high Avon bank, I met an old man going home to Shottery with a sack over his back and an untrimmed ash stick in his hand. We just said, "Good evening," and passed on. But I recognised him. He was one of the homespun Warwickshire yokels that Shakespeare took to Athens on that magic midsummer's night. Blimey. Didn't know about that. What have we got here? Let's have a look, see what you're saying. We're in Warwickshire. County of my birth, says Morton Lewis. Face like a withered apple. Yes, he has got some amazing expressions, has he not? Andrew Norris is here. What ho, I remember dancing round the maypole at school. Wouldn't happen now. No, what a shame. I don't think we ever danced around the maypole in Horsham, where I went. I wonder if he gets to Chesterton Windmill. Oh, well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Linda Kane. They dance around the maypole here in the village. Hi, by the way. Hello to you, Linda Kane. Graham Cass. In infants, danced around the maypole. Wasn't good at that either. Ben Reed says, we used to have a post mill in Stokenchurch until it collapsed in 1926. Ironically, its site is now the Oxford-bound exit slip road of the M40. Oh, that's a bit of a shame. I can't really see the irony in that personally, but I can see a great sadness and sorrow. Michael Angel, good nooning all. Good nooning to you, sir. And Carl Lafus says, hello from the south of Brazil, from Florianopolis. I'm sure I've said that land. Florianopolis Island. Is that it? Florianopolis. Sounds a lovely place. So there we go. Hot stuff. Like your women, Morton. Oh, right. By the way, for those of you who've just joined and you may not have seen at the beginning of the show, just want to say, whoever it was, I'm not opening it until my birthday, which is on Thursday, but whoever sent me this, it's arrived. There's a book and a card. Well, I assume it's a book. Feels like a book. Right, we're on part 2 of this, In Search of England. I was coming out of the village post office when a voice, which I know well, cried, "The very man! Do you know that my wife wrote 3 letters to you and never had a reply?" No, I didn't. Well, she wants you to write about the new gypsies. Who are the new gypsies? We are. There are heaps more, but we are typical examples. The habit is growing too. The only way I can keep fit is by getting out of London at weekends. We had a houseboat on the Thames last year, but it sank this spring, so we've taken to weekend camping. Some weekends we go to Devon or Somerset or down to the New Forest, and this is our first Warwickshire camp. Look here, do you know about Abbott's Mill? He's going to Abbott's Mill. What mill did you say? Chesterton. He's going to Abbott's Mill. Good. Well, when you get past the mill, take the footpath to the left, carry on till you meet a stream with a little bridge over it. Don't cross the bridge, it isn't safe. There's a plank on the left. Cross the stubble field to the wood, which you'll see on your right, and then, when you get there, shout. We'll hear you. Come to dinner. Sardines, bacon and eggs, and tinned tongue. Tinned tongue. Oh, such temptation. How about that? Well, I can't come tonight. Then come when you can after dinner. The stars are simply marvellous. You'll be able to write yards about it. Great Scott, that reminds me. I've got to get a half yard of elastic. See you later. John X, the precise London businessman, clipped and neat in everything, was the last person I would have expected to see in a lost village dressed like a rat catcher. So, of course, I decided to go. It was growing dark when I passed Abbott's Mill and struck along the footpath which, contrary to my expectations, for directions always lead you astray, led to a small stream and a decayed bridge. A rich gold field of cut corn with rabbits at the edge led on to a ragged line of trees against the sky. Here I shouted. A man's voice answered some way off. There was a crackling of twigs, and in a few moments John X appeared at the edge of the wood with his sleeves rolled up. "Just been washing up," he explained with a grin. "Beastly job. Come on." He led the way along a little gamekeeper's track through the wood. Can you imagine a great change from London? Can you imagine a greater change from London than this? Asked John X, waving a hand to include the shadowy trees. Weekend cottages and houseboats and all that sort of thing. End of the bridge parties and cocktails and in time you'll meet all the friends you want to escape from. But this, one might be in the middle of the moon. Here we are. We stepped into a sudden clearing. A wood fire was burning some way from a green tent. A touring car covered by a tarpaulin was in the background. We had an awful job getting the car up here, but it was worth it. We're right off the main track. Mrs. John X came out of the tent. I never saw a prettier gypsy. "You see," she said, taking me to the tent, "we have electric light tapped from the car." There was a rug on the floor and 2 camp beds. Say when, said John, approaching the soda siphon. We sat around the fire and watched the darkness creep out of the still woods and enfolding the little clearing. We found the first star. The light of the campfire ran up the trunks of the nearest trees. "This isn't our best camp by any means," said John X, lighting his pipe. "But the idea is not to stick in one place. You keep exploring. Our best spot so far is bang in the middle of the New Forest, with a crystal clear 6-foot swimming pool at the tent door and nothing for miles." "Gorgeous," said Mrs. John X. "I take a swimming costume with me, but I never use it. And we hear the fox barking, and one night we went with a gamekeeper to smoke out a wild bee's nest. We took over 45 pounds of honey in the tin bath." John X got up and wandered off to the car. I'm thinking, I said, "that this must be an excellent cure for married life. I suppose you and John quarrel in town now and again?" Like hell," said Mrs. John. Mrs. John. "One gets into a groove, then I think, love them as much as one does. It's good. It's a good thing to get away from the children, if you know what I mean." "I do. A man and a woman ought to get away together. A man and a woman ought to get away alone together like this and fend for themselves and rely on one another. A cottage with servants and a country hotel isn't the same thing." "Hear, hear," cried John X, emerging, carrying, at what at first sight I feared was a large gramophone. "This gypsying together puts us right for a week after, doesn't it, old girl? Of course, some women hate it. Mary, give me a hand with this thing." She got up a neat silhouette against the fire, and helped him to fix up on the ground a big wireless set. "This," said John X, "is only to show off to you. We keep it..." What? "We keep it wet. Oh, sorry, we keep it for wet weekends." I thought you meant he kept this wireless wet. This is just to show off to you. We keep it for wet weekends." It was a queer experience to sit in front of a fire in the middle of a wood and hear a strong orchestra playing in London. "It's friendly on a wet night," said Mrs. John X. It was quite dark. The stars were indeed marvellous, powdered above the clearing. Moths flickered in the light of the fire, and the outer ring of darkness of the tall trees stood unruffled by the slightest wind, the yellow firelight touching their boughs and moving, flinging grotesque shadows. We sat mostly in silence, smoking and hushed by the peace of the night. "Anyone with a car can do this," said John X, closing a great paw over Mrs. John's hand. "Couldn't they, Mary?" Almost anyone, I thought, watching them. It occurred to me that their short dashes from the responsibilities of their home are a secret worth passing on. The atmosphere of playing a game together is a great one to introduce into married life. Mrs. John went to the tent and switched on the light. "Oh, John," she cried, coming into the firelight, "there's a moth as big as an aeroplane on my pillow." "I'll fix him," said John X, rising and striding to the tent. "Don't kill him. Please don't kill him. Just remove him, John." "You're too late," came the reply. "My caveman," said Mrs. John X, lighting a cigarette. John X lit the lantern, took me to the plank over the stream. The stars, the peace of the place. I watched his lantern bob back through the wood, and then there was darkness. I stood for a moment thinking that no one would guess how lost together those two London gypsies were. Only a few hours from their home and their children, but alone together on this night of stars, as if they were in the heart of a Libyan desert. There was a great scurrying of cottontails at the edge of the dark field, and the rush of water at Abbott's Mill drummed loud in the hush of the night. Isn't that lovely? How lovely is that? Fresh sardines, homemade brown bread, marmalade, wonderful, says Michael. Yes, sounds lovely. Wild bees, they were livid. Yes, I bet they were. Larry Hazelwood, hello to you, Larry. Thank you for joining us tonight, this afternoon even. Ria, didn't like camping with the Girls' Guide myself. It was in February and it was snowing. So cold. I'm not at all surprised, actually. I like the sound of the light rain on the canvas at night. Yes, that is at night. That is nice. I like the sound of rain on windows. Yeah, lovely. Very lovely. I suppose no one cares to write about Coventry without mentioning motor cars and bicycles. So, having done this in the first sentence, we'll leave it there. And in fact, if we remember rightly, what's his name? What was it? What was his name? What was his name? What was his name? The first book we read. Oh, come on! Not I Saw Two Englands. The other one. What was his name? You know, the author that we wrote. I'm looking around as if I can find his sodding book. What was the name of the kind of English Journey by famous author? We read it. I read it. You listened to it. Can't remember his name. What was his name? Waiting for somebody to type it. Oh, he went on anyway. What was his name? There's only so many. No, not R.T. wrote the one before that. Oh, come on. He wrote the play. You know the play. No, not wrote. The one before that. He wrote the. What's his name? Priestley. J.B. Priestley. I have to do all the work here, you know. I have to do all the remembering as well. J.B. Priestley, English Journey. Yes, thank you. No one's... Holt. No. Yes, that's it. Thanks, James. I've already got there, thank you. Yes, they're all writing it now. There. What, JB Priestley, JB Priestley? Yes, I've done it. I've got there. Stop. Cease. Still doing it. Priestley, H.G. Wells. No, not H.G. Wells. We haven't read any H.G. Wells. No one would have believed in the early parts of the late parts of the 19th century. Minds immeasurably more superior than eyes were watching us. Anyway, what's his face? Yes, him. Anyway, he was going on about... We went to Coventry and he did a great thing about Coventry. And he talked about motor cars and bicycles. So there we are. I just thought that was interesting, so we'll leave it there. The interesting fact about Coventry is, to my mind, not bicycles or cylinders, but women. He is a lech, this bloke, isn't he? Coventry has always been lucky with women and should, therefore, be England's happiest city. 1926, all very well. 1941, was it? Blitzed to... And all those lovely ladies snuffed. Was it bombed to smithereens in 1940? Was it 1940 in the Blitz? Which, anyway, in that early part of the war. Defoe. No, it wasn't bloody Defoe. Stop. Behave yourselves. It begins with an old legend that when Coventry was in its infancy, the 11,000 virgins of Cologne arrived there on a kind of spiritual Cook's tour. Cook's tour, all aboard the Cook's tour. I think Thomas Cook's gone out of business, hasn't he? Went out of business a while ago. They stayed a while, illuminating the village with their piety, and departing, left 11,000 virtues to be shared by successive generations of their own sex in Coventry. If any city in the kingdom has a more beautiful story or has paid a sweeter compliment to its womenfolk, I have yet to hear about it. It is interesting to descend from fiction to strange fact that Coventry has a remarkable feminine role of honour. Saint Osberg, Lady Godiva, Isabella, Margaret of Anjou, or Anjou, is it? The sisters Bottiner, who built the spire, Joan Ward, the Lollard Martyr. Oh, was that Joan Ward, the Lollard Martyr? Mrs. Siddons, whoever she might be, George Eliot, and Ellen Terry. How many of those can you mention? It would be nice camping with all the mod cons, but when I camped, it was basic and we couldn't sleep due to the cold. Woke up with frozen ground and snow in the tent. Yes. November 1940 was worst. Oh, thank you very much. November 1940. We are in the middle of the Blitz now, aren't we? August 1940. I was hoping to do a whole load of stuff about 1940. It's eluded me, and I feel absolutely gutted because it's 80 years. 80 years since the Battle of Britain and 80 years since the Blitz, and I wanted to do so much, but I just never got to do it. By the way, 28 people concurrently watching. Give us a thumbs up. Lady Godiva always attracted me. She is, of course, the leading lady in Coventry's history. I do not care much for the modern version of her ride, which, in an excess of Victorian modesty, makes her agonised by the shame of her ordeal. I prefer the first written account done by Roger of Wendover, somewhere around AD 1230, which, to any man who knows and admires the grim recklessness of a woman who has made up her mind, rings down 7 centuries with a tone of truth. According to him, Godiva wasted no time in remorse or wondering what the Robinsons would say. She just loosened her hair, thus veiling her body, and then, mounting her horse and attended by 2 knights, she rode through the market scene of none. She rode through the market scene of none, her white legs nevertheless appearing, and, having completed her journey, returned to her husband's rejoicing. As a matter of fact, it seemed clear from the first record that if we could witness this ride, which has given the world a thrilled shock for centuries, we should probably find that Lady Godiva's appearance in Coventry Market was no more sensational than a modern girl catching an omnibus. In the Mayoress's parlour of the Guildhall is a statue of Godiva on her white horse. It's a lovely thing. There is another in the Great Hall set in a niche. There is also a picture of her. "You really believe this happened?" I asked the keen, well-read caretaker who shows people over the hall. "Well, I can't prove—" I nearly did him American then. "Well, we can't prove it," he said, "but where there's smoke, there's surely fire. A story that lives that long must be true." A different opinion was held by the high official of Coventry. "I don't believe it happened," he said, "but don't mention my name, or I will be driven from the city. You have read Sir James Fraser's Golden Bough, have you? Surely you're not going to tell me that Lady Godiva was a corn spirit?" "No, but it is very suggestive. We know Godiva lived and founded a religious house here. Her name was therefore respected. It is not for 150 years after she died that we have any documentary evidence of her ride. There is no contemporary reference to it. Now, as Fraser points out, the ride of a naked or bough-clad woman on a white horse occurs in the folklore of many heathen people. I suppose it had something to do with heathen sacrifice. In this part of the country, the hobby horse has played an important part in folk dances. Old men can still remember the Warwickshire May Day revels with the Morris dancers and their hobby horses. I believe that Godiva's famous ride is nothing more than an ancient folk tradition coming down from the remote heathen times of the naked woman on the white horse. That would be more obvious than for tale makers to link up this legend with an admired name of Lady Godiva, don't you think? However, of course, we can prove nothing." I left him impressed and depressed. I hate killing old stories. I like to believe that Alfred burnt the cakes and that Canute had a conversation with the sea, and I shall go on believing that Godiva rode through the market attended by 2 thanes and that nobody paid any attention to her. After all, experience tells us that women have a genius for getting the better of their husbands. And when Godiva returned rejoicing to the fiery Leofric, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, Leofric, I suppose she said, "My dear, I said I'd do it, and I did it, and no one saw me." I'd like to think that Lady Godiva spoke in the same way that Irene Handel would have spoken. I would love to see Irene Handel. "Oh, no, dear," speak like that. Irene Handel. So funny. Yes. Anyway, for those that don't know, over your head. Irene Handel. Oh, I've got to find Irene Handel now, just to give you the voice of Irene Handel as Lady Godiva, and you will see exactly what I mean. It's almost without Irene Handel. Oh, I want on YouTube, you twerp. Bear with me, caller. We'll get there. This is just one of those moments where I get lost in an idea. We want a bit of her talking. Here we are. This is her in Sickness and in Health.
You mustn't harbour thoughts.
That's not her.
You can go home. Oh, thank you, sir. I say, you haven't introduced us.
That's Irene Handel. I mean, you can't really.
On it, pardon.
As Lady Godiva, she would have been brilliant. In a comic fashion, of course. Anyway, sorry about that. I just got slightly confused. Right, where are we? Oh, yes, Leah Fritz. I said I'd do it, and I did it, and nobody saw me. While I'm dressing, you better go and take off those taxes you promised, or I shall be very angry. I can just hear her saying that. We must remember that Godiva's inheritance from the 11,000 virtues is obviously the art of managing a headstrong husband. A corn spirit? Nonsense. She was just an ordinary wife, weren't you?
Don't whisper. if you have anything to say, let's hear it.
You can just imagine her talking to her husband just like that. Oh, marvellous. If you've got anything to say, let's hear it. I'm Lady Godiva. Oh, dear, oh, dear. What is this? I doubt she spoke like Irene Handel. Lady Godiva was a noblewoman, not a cockney, says Rhea. I am joking, of course. I am joking. This is called irony. She starred in many films. Irene Handel, Heinz Middleton soup advert. Oh, Heinz Minestrone soup advert. Is that? Let's see if I can find that. Just because it's so funny. Irene Handel, Heinz. How are we spelling Heinz? I always get that wrong. H-I-E, isn't it? Where are you? E-I. That's right. E-I. E-I. Heinz. No, I haven't got an advert come up for that. Mrs. Skidmore.
Now who's frothing at the mouth?
Wait, where is she? No, that's anyway. Let's carry on because we're wasting valuable time. It's your time, and we're getting close to the end of the book. Right, here we go. Sorry about that. Slight little detour. How are we doing? Okay. Like Norwich, Coventry is a modern manufacturing city which is spread like thick butter over a slice of medievalism. It is a lucky city. Not anymore, unfortunately. Fire, which wiped out old London from the map, has spared Coventry several of the finest buildings of their kind in the world. St Mary's Hall, Ford's Hospital for aged women, and Bab Lake Hospital. Probably all gone in the Blitz. So sad. Ford's Hospital appeals to me as the most beautiful and most lovable half-timbered building in England. I know of nothing else quite so fine. When I passed through the gate into the flagged courtyard, with the top-heavy, leaning black and white house running round the four sides, glowing with a richness of oak beams and yellow plasterwork, I entered another world. I was in Coventry of AD 1550. Has that gone? Has Ford's Hospital gone? Somebody look it up, would you? The narrow square of sky overhead included no reminder of modern Coventry. The usual gasworks or factory stack didn't strike the false note. Here was the peace and beauty of the Tudor world. For 400 years, this house has protected old women of Coventry who have fallen on bad times. At the present moment, it shelters 16. Many are over 80. Oh, many are over 80, said the caretaker. They get 4 shillings a week and free coal, and they can do what they like. You know, have friends to tea, visit each other, and so on. The rooms in which the old women live have made many a rich American bite his nails in envy. Some visitors cannot drag themselves away, said the caretaker. It's very lovely with the flowers out in the window boxes. We entered a large beamed apartment in which a fire was burning in a vast grate. She's just moved in today, explained the caretaker. She's just been admitted to the hospital. All the old ladies furnish their own rooms, you know. I looked round the high, elegant room and noticed the little treasures which this old woman had saved at the end of her life. Pathetic rooms. The first thing she had done, I noted, was to hang on the wall over her bed a pious mottos in praise of God and his goodness. She's out at the moment. She's over 70 and hale and hearty too. It's surprising how active they are. If good William Ford, merchant stapler of Coventry, who sent his grand gift down the ages, could revisit it, nothing would surprise him, I think, except the electric light. And what a blessing that is, remarked the caretaker. "When I first came here, I couldn't sleep at the thought of a possible fire. Well, when you come to think of it, for nearly 400 years the old women of 70 and 80 have been going to bed by candlelight. It's wonderful that there have been no accidents." "I've had an accident." "Get off." We entered many of the rooms. Most of the old women had gone out to attend a meeting in the city. Some rooms were prettier than others and better furnished, but all were like this. Near the bed, children and grandchildren looked out from photograph frames. In the finest room of all was a scene that Rembrandt would have loved. Against a broad Tudor window, made of hundreds of small leaded panes of glass, sat a wrinkled old woman with a shawl over her shoulders. Behind her, through the window, we could see the quadrangle, the yellow and black beams of the house and the little square of sky. The old woman was smiling across the tea table to her grandchild. The young woman had come with the news from the outside which old people love to hear. "I'm always sorry for the lonely ones," said the caretaker. "They do love to have little presents and to see their children and grandchildren." Once a week the old ladies of Ford's house put on their best bonnets and meet in the room downstairs facing the street. The almoner sits in the little table with a pile of money before him. One by one the old women go up and receive 4 shillings straight from Elizabethan England. William Ford needs no statue in Coventry. Ford's Hospital still exists, says Linda Kane. Oh, yippee! I wonder if we can find a picture of it. Ford's Hospital still exists. Where's the thing? Ford's Hospital, Coventry. Oh, yes, here we go. Not news, not maps, images I want. Oh, stop. Images. Oh, yes, here we are. Let me just... sorry, I can't see the thing to cut over to it. Here we go. Look at this. That's what it looks like. How lovely is that? What a beautiful house. I'm so thrilled that that still exists. And this must be a drawing of it. There we go. What about that, eh? Everyone likes a from time to time. Sorry about the noise of my chair. Well, and that's the end of that section, really. 1, 2. Do you know, tomorrow, which is Wednesday, we will finish the book. There's only one bit. That's it. A few more pages. We will finish the book tomorrow at Warwick Castle. How exciting. Well, there we are. Thank you very much. The Banbury lady had rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. I thought they came from the same legend, but I stand corrected. Oh, yes, that's a different woman, is it, than Lady Godiva? One of them would be wise to you. She would pull your leg and bells out. Ford's Hospital still is traditionally known as Greyfriars Hospital. Bomb dropped on it in World War II, apparently used as a location for Doctor Who episode. The Shakespeare Code in 2006, not sure what that is. What was the Doctor Who when Chris Eccleston won with the kids in gas masks? Oh, lovely building. So does my infant school, the only one of my schools that existed from after the war. The Midlands is gorgeous. There we are, look at that. No idea. Thanks for the reading. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks, Ria. Yes, well, there we go. That's another one in the bag. I've got to finish an edit off now. And also, I was out this morning. I haven't started this edit, got this evening to do, on a tractor myself with lovely Ian Kagan. McKagan. Yeah, I'd get there in the end. Anyway, thank you so much. If you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. That was very kind. And I will catch up with you. No show tonight, but then I will have a reading tomorrow and the Vogue show with the lovely Julia tomorrow night. And part 3 of our Meadow Harvest videos. That's just been edited. I've just got to go and check it through and encode it and get it on YouTube ready for tomorrow. That's all ready. And then there's me riding roughshod on a tractor on Thursday, which will be quite fun. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Have another cup of tea or something, and I will catch up with you anon. Thank you for coming along. For now, bye-bye.